China, a country once celebrated for its high savings rate, is now quietly becoming a nation in debt. The stunning reality is that as of the second quarter of 2025, the average debt per person in China has reached 130,000 yuan. To put that into perspective, the National Bureau of Statistics reported the average disposable income per person in 2024 was 42,600 yuan. This means an average family would need to work for 3 years without spending any money just to pay off their debt. Even more concerning, this is only the average. The people truly burdened by this heavy debt are primarily young urban residents and middle-class families. So, how did China go from being a savings superpower to a debt-ridden nation? To pinpoint the cause, we need to look at the household leverage ratio. In 2008, China's household leverage ratio was only 18%, a figure that amazed the world and highlighted the Chinese tradition of saving. By the end of 2024, that number had surged to 62.8%, an increase of 44.8 percentage points in just 16 years. For context, it took developed nations like the US and Japan decades to reach this point. China did it in a single generation. The speed of this debt growth has been described as a runaway high-speed train, accelerating wildly with no time to brake. The primary source of this debt is, without a doubt, housing. Data from the People's Bank of China shows that as of June 2025, the balance of household loans in China was 76.9 trillion yuan, with housing loans accounting for 52.6 trillion yuan, or 68.4% of the total. The situation with housing prices in Beijing is a stark example. In 2024, the average price was 65,000 yuan per square meter, putting a standard 100 square meter apartment at 6.5 million yuan. Meanwhile, the average annual disposable income for a Beijing resident was only 89,000 yuan. This means a Beijing family would need to work for 73 years without spending a cent to buy a home with cash. Internationally, a housing price-to-income ratio above 9 is considered dangerous. Beijing's ratio has blasted past 73. This is not just buying a house, it's a lifetime commitment. Beyond housing, raising children continues to drain family finances. Data from 2024 shows that education spending accounts for a massive 17.6% of household expenditures in China, while the average for OECD countries is just 4.3%. From kindergarten to college and from tutoring to studying abroad, Chinese parents are seemingly pouring all their savings into their children. A survey from one educational institution found that the average total cost to raise a child from kindergarten to college graduation is about 1.035 million yuan, and that doesn't even include studying abroad. Another significant contributor to debt is healthcare costs, which are rising as the population ages. By the first half of 2025, China's population aged 65 and over had reached 277 million, accounting for 19.8% of the total population. Data from the National Health Commission is even more sobering. In 2024, the average healthcare spending per person in China was 5,230 yuan, a 12.3% year-over-year increase. For many families, the high costs of examinations and surgeries at top-tier hospitals have become the final straw. For those with chronic illnesses or cancer, household debt is an almost certain outcome. Beyond essential expenses, a wave of pre-consumption among young people has fueled the fire. People's Bank of China data shows that by the end of June 2025, credit card and consumer loan balances reached 9.8 trillion yuan, up 15.7% from the previous year. At the same time, the number of online consumer finance users reached 590 million, which means that 1 in every 2 Chinese people is using online loans or credit card installments. A survey from early 2025 revealed that the debt ratio for individuals between 25 and 35 years old is as high as 78.3%, with over half of them having multiple loans. In short, many young people are not earning money. They are working to pay off banks and financial institutions. While debt has ballooned, income has not kept pace. In 2024, the real growth in China's per capita disposable income was only 3.2%, a significant drop from the more than 6% growth consistently seen from 2015 to 2019. Stagnant income and ballooning debt have caused the household debt-to-income ratio to surge from 80.3% in 2015 to 129.5% in 2024. In the years following the pandemic, many families were forced into debt. A 2024 survey on family finances showed that 17.3% of families saw their income decrease due to the pandemic, and 29.6% increased their debt. The stark reality is that many people didn't want to borrow money. They had to. The average per capita debt of 130,000 yuan also hides vast regional disparities. In 2024, the average debt per person in Shanghai was 237,000 yuan, while in Gansu province it was only 51,000 yuan, a 4.6 times difference. The reason is straightforward. Housing prices are so high in first-tier cities that people must take on debt, while in the less developed central and western regions, incomes are so low that many don't even qualify for a loan. In other words, the affluent can borrow, while the poor don't even have the opportunity to. A comparison with other countries further highlights China's precarious position. The rise in debt in developed nations was a gradual accumulation over decades, but China achieved the same result in just 15 years. More alarmingly, China's social security system is far less robust than those in developed countries, offering little to no safety net in case of unemployment or illness. In this situation, debt is like a time bomb, ready to explode. Behind these cold numbers are the tragedies of ordinary families, someone afraid to lose their job because of their mortgage, a family pouring all their savings into their child's education, a household driven into crippling debt by a major illness, or an individual trapped in a cycle of consumer loans. The transformation from a savings superpower to a nation in debt happened in one generation. The real question is, when debt is suffocating everyone, how far can the Chinese economy continue to charge forward before it collapses? If the average debt of 130,000 yuan is just a cold number, in reality it has become a suffocating feeling for every family. For young people in first-tier cities, the most familiar feeling is not the passion for work, but the anxiety of monthly mortgage payments. In Shenzhen, for example, housing prices remain high in 2025, with an average price of around 62,000 yuan per square meter. A 90-square-meter starter home would cost close to 5.6 million yuan. Assuming a 30% down payment from a couple, the loan would be about 3.9 million yuan. With a 30-year term and a 4% annual interest rate, the monthly payment would be a staggering 18,600 yuan. The problem? The average annual disposable income for a Shenzhen resident is 95,000 yuan, so a family with an annual income of less than 200,000 yuan needs to pay 220,000 yuan in mortgage payments per year. The irony is that this is with a relatively low interest rate. As a result, more young people are forced into a life of being a mortgage slave. They are afraid to have children, change jobs, or even get sick because of their housing situation. Among middle-class families, education anxiety is a major concern. The 2024 China Family Education Expense Report shows that the average total cost for a child from kindergarten to university is a remarkable 1.035 million yuan. If they choose to study abroad, 4 years of undergraduate school can easily start at 2 million yuan. According to a survey by the Sociology Department at Tsinghua University, education spending accounts for as much as 30% of income for middle-class families in first-tier cities like Beijing and Shanghai, which is almost like a hidden mortgage. This has trapped parents in a vicious cycle. They take on debt for tutoring to secure their children's future, but to pay for the tutoring, they have to work more, and to work more, they have to sacrifice time with their children. China's population aged 65 and over reached 277 million in 2025, which represents a super-aging society. This demographic shift means family healthcare costs are rising uncontrollably. In 2024, per capita healthcare spending reached 5,230 yuan, an increase of 12.3% year over year. If a family member is diagnosed with cancer, treatment costs often fall between 300,000 and 500,000 yuan, with critical care potentially exceeding 1 million. In reality, a single major illness can instantly destroy a family's financial stability. While the previous generation saved money for retirement, home purchases, and to provide for their children, today's young people are increasingly borrowing to get by. Central bank data shows that as of June 2025, credit card and consumer loan balances were 9.8 trillion yuan, a 15.7% increase. A survey by an online financial platform found that the debt ratio for individuals between 25 and 35 is 78.3%, with 52.6% of young people having multiple loans and an average credit card debt of over 20,000 yuan. This means a recent graduate with only a few thousand yuan in savings could be burdened with tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands in debt. Their daily life includes paying for phones, travel, and even food delivery in installments. On payday, half their money goes to paying off credit cards, while the other half goes to living expenses. It has been said that China's young people are not living, but rather surviving on debt. Household debt is just the tip of the iceberg, as a greater risk comes from government and corporate debt. According to the National Institution for Finance and Development's Q2 2025 report, China's macro leverage ratio exceeded 300% for the first time. The household leverage ratio was 62.8%, the government leverage ratio was 70.4%, and the non-financial corporate leverage ratio was 167.2%. Crucially, a significant portion of corporate debt has been allocated to inefficient investments like new energy vehicles, solar panels, and semiconductors. While these are considered high-tech, they are experiencing severe overcapacity and intense competition. For example, in the first half of 2025, the capacity utilization rate for new energy vehicles in China was less than 60%. More than 20 car manufacturers announced layoffs or production halts. Money was invested and capacity was built, but there was no market demand, leaving the debt as a dead loss. The most telling figure from Q2 2025 is that China's nominal GDP growth was only 3.9%, while household debt continued to soar. The growth of nominal GDP, which is GDP calculated at market prices, was slower than real GDP, which is GDP adjusted for inflation. This signifies that companies are not making money, resident incomes are not rising, but the debt snowball is getting bigger. This is what economists refer to as losing both the chicken and the eggs. The plan was to borrow money to make a profit, but not only were there no profits, the initial investment was lost. The government wants to boost the economy through consumption, but people's spending power is locked up. Mortgages consume half of their income, education and healthcare costs are rising, young people are relying on credit cards, and the elderly are afraid to spend money because they need to save for retirement and medical care. Data shows that in the first half of 2025, China's consumer spending accounted for only 38.4% of GDP. This is not only below the global average of about 60%, but it is also lower than India's. Where did the money go? The harsh answer is, it was spent on houses, which locked up 3 generations of cash flow, on education, which created a wave of anxious tutoring classes, on healthcare, which became a financial disaster for many families, and on inefficient investments, which resulted in overcapacity and corporate competition. This is a financial crisis in which the entire nation is involved. The average per capita debt of 130,000 yuan is just a number, but behind it are people with million yuan mortgages, people who owe tens of thousands in online loans, and some who have already gone bankrupt. Thanks for watching and joining us on this journey to unveil China's many layers. If you found this video insightful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with others, and hit that subscribe button to stay updated. See you in the next video.